Is it sustainable? The wine business is at a crossroads. Vice President of Sustainability at Kendall-Jackson joins us to discuss the company's carbon neutrality plan. Julien Gervreau, he is the Vice President of Sustainability for Kendall-Jackson. He's joining me now from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I want to start with your carbon neutrality pledge. You're aiming by 2050, but there are a lot of other companies that are much larger and do things that are significantly more polluting that have much more ambitious timelines. For example, Apple is expected to reach carbon neutrality by 2030, as does Microsoft. Amazon by 2040, FedEx by 2040, and GM, a car company, is going carbon neutral by 2040 as well. That comes on the heels of this troubling UN climate report that said that essentially we have about 10 years to address the effects of climate change. So why is your pledge by 2050 of particular note?
So I think what's important to keep in mind about our pledge for becoming climate positive by 2050 is not the longer term target of 2050, but the intermediate target where we are looking to cut our emissions in half by 2030. And those emissions targets really are in line with what the scientific consensus is saying is required from the global community in terms of direct emissions reductions and direct emissions cuts in order to keep the world online with the 1.5C future target. And I think one thing that is different about our pledge is that we're looking to do that without the purchase of external offsets. So we are focusing on the direct emissions reductions that we can take within our own business, within our supply chain, as opposed to the purchase of external offsets.
And what are some of those reductions? So
in looking comprehensively at our supply chain and our own individual footprint, we've done a pretty exhaustive inventory of what's driving our emissions. Some of the big things for us are obviously electricity consumption, and we've moved towards a lot of on-site renewable energy development. We're the largest generator of on-site solar in the U.S. wine industry today. It's also looking at things like moving our vehicle fleets, agricultural equipment, pickup trucks, fleet vehicles to zero emissions vehicles by 2030, in line with that target. And then on the supply chain side, looking at the broader transportation with our how we ship our case goods across the country and over the world, and then also on the supply chain side, packaging to glass packaging, reducing emissions associated with that over the next 10 years. Those are the big key areas.
Part of your pledge is about water usage, and in drought-stricken California, that's obviously incredibly important. You already save an impressive 28 million gallons of water every year, but water usage represents only about 5% of U.S. carbon emissions. So why is this such a substantial part of your pledge?
Well, it's really on that point that you mentioned at the beginning. It's about being an agricultural producer in a constantly drought-stricken environment. So we look at water really as a symptom of climate change, and it's something that we as farmers in the arid West have to increasingly be resilient and increasingly be creative in terms of our water resources. So yes, on the carbon side, on the climate side, water usage is not a major factor from an emission standpoint, but it is absolutely a symptom. And so it's something that we see as farmers, the need to continue to, innovate and improve upon our water metrics and also become more resilient in the face of drought.
Okay, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.